There's an ancient Babylonian parable describing a pack of wild, hungry dogs howling in the night. If you throw them a piece of meat, they immediately fight over the scraps, gorging themselves on whatever they can grab in the moment. They swallow the food whole, giving absolutely no thought to the fact that they will be hungry again tomorrow. Humans often run exactly the same script. We get a paycheck and immediately look for ways to consume it, chasing the quick dopamine hit of a new purchase or an expensive meal, while entirely ignoring our long-term security. Arcad, a figure known in these parables as the richest man in Babylon, argued that this behavior is why most people stay broke. He observed that true wealth has almost nothing to do with the size of your salary. Rather, it is the direct result of personal discipline and character. This chart represents a typical whole income. According to Arcad, the primary cure for a lean purse is incredibly straightforward. A strict rule that the bottom 10% of everything you earn must be separated and locked away before you spend a single dime on anything else. Enforcing this rule breaks the cycle of endless consumption. When you consistently pay yourself first, you train your brain to prioritize permanent security. Over time, that initial fraction begins to compound, building a stable base of assets. Financial survival demands exactly this kind of shift. You have to replace the reactive, emotional instincts of a wild dog with the disciplined, mathematical foresight of a merchant. Once you start accumulating wealth, your next challenge is protecting it. The texts illustrate this with the story of a farmer's donkey. The donkey saw his friend, the ox, exhausted from working the fields all day. Wanting to help, the donkey advised the ox to pretend to be sick so he could finally rest. The farmer saw the sick ox, and instead of halting the work, he simply strapped the donkey to the plow. By the end of the day, the donkey was physically broken and entirely bitter. By trying to give his friend a day off, he inadvertently took on the full weight of his friend's heavy labor. The financial lesson here is about boundaries. If you lend your hard-earned money to friends without a structured, viable repayment plan, you risk taking on their financial burdens to your own ruin. The other massive threat to your protected assets is your own extravagance. The Babylonians recorded the story of Dabasir, a man who fell into severe degradation because he continually bought things he couldn't afford, racking up an overwhelming ledger of personal debt. Instead of facing his creditors, Dabasir ran. The texts describe this exact psychology as having the soul of a slave, the urge to hide from your honest commitments rather than facing the consequences of the money you spent. Reclaiming your financial honor requires a rigid framework. You have to proactively track down your creditors, admit your past failures, and execute a strict, systematic plan to pay back every cent you owe. Setting strict boundaries protects your savings from the careless mistakes of others. Confronting your debts head-on reclaims your honor from the mistakes of your own past. With defense handled, you have to transition to wealth multiplication. In ancient commerce, the camel was the ultimate symbol of economic industry. The camel represents the means of production. Guiding one across the desert requires specialized skill and intense physical endurance. It is proof of a person's ability to provide actual, transportable value to the marketplace. You have to apply that same industry to your protected 10%. Savings alone will eventually stagnate. Wealth is only built when you deploy your gold into calculated investments, treating every coin as a worker in your herd. But there is a crucial warning within the ancient laws of gold. Investments must be guided by the established wisdom of experts. If you trust the naive overconfidence of your own youth, you will lose the herd. Disciplined savings, combined with enduring labor and the guidance of experts, creates a self-sustaining engine. That engine is what multiplies wealth across generations. The distinction between the wealthy and the foolish often comes down to how they process their own history. Fools allow the memories of missed opportunities to plague them, carrying regret as a constant, heavy burden. A successful investor analyzes their past mistakes and extracts the lesson. They weaponize the memory of a past failure, using it as a psychological shield to identify and guard against recurring risks in the future. The mechanics of debt management and investing are ultimately just math. The true variables that determine prosperity are your internal discipline and your willingness to take personal responsibility. Look at these mud brick ruins. The massive defensive walls and the physical empire of Babylon eventually crumbled to dust, but the financial architecture developed by its citizens survived completely intact. Possessing a mental framework of financial wisdom outlasts physical wealth. You can lose all your physical gold, but if you have the discipline and the wisdom, you will always have the blueprint to rebuild it.